So let's see. So we have another translation from the teachings of Gyopa Jigten Sumgun to share. So I'm going to read to you. Right now, this translation is pretty good, but we still have to work on fine-tuning, polishing it. So let me look for it and I will share with you. So this one is called, this is a longer one, this is called The Practice of Mahamudra, the Life Essence of the Darkinis. Om Swasti, I bow at the feet of the precious Guru, unequal and sublime, who has completely exhausted all faults, who is the treasury of all good qualities, and possesses the threefold kindness. It is the realized intent of all Buddhists of the three times. It is the essence of the collection of the precious Tripitaka. It is the quintessence of the exalted minds of all the past sublime lineage gurus. It is bodhicitta, the pith instruction through which one will certainly awaken into perfect Buddhahood in this very lifetime. Bodhicitta has two aspects, relative and ultimate bodhicitta. The great master of the 10 bhumis, who takes rebirth consciously, the precious crown jewel of the world together with its gods, is none other than the great Jowo Atisha, the sole divine Lord. His oral instructions and their subsequent teachings concerning the stages for practicing relative bodhicitta condense the essence of the speech and teachings of all Buddhists throughout the three times into the stages of the path for the three types of individuals. As it is him who is skilled in the stages of training in loving kindness, compassion, and bodhicitta, as it is him who is skilled in the stages of training in loving kindness, compassion, and bodhicitta, and allowing them to arise in the mind stream. There is therefore no need to rely on any other oral instructions or subsequent teachings. If we proceed according to the position of our own sublime Guru, it would nevertheless be generally in accordance with the above. However, it is taught that accomplishment is swiftly attained if one unifies the mouth, heart, and meaning, and constantly practices without any other considerations, propelled by the lack of dishonesty in terms of body, speech, and mind. Thus, please understand that it is of great importance to exert oneself single-mindedly. And so here what it seems to say here is that first it says that, to practice relative bodhicitta, there is nothing better than to focus on the way in which Jowo Atisha has taught how to practice relative bodhicitta. Then it says, and if we were to add further kind of emphasis on this teaching on bodhicitta from Jowo Atisha, and if we were to add from our own tradition, and this could refer to Pamodrupa, or it could refer to Jigten Sumgun. And when it says, if we proceed according to the position of Sublime Guru, here Sublime Guru could either be Jigten Sumgun or Sublime Guru could be Pamodrupa. He says, then basically it's the same as what Atisha says, except that to add here, we have to unify the mouth, the heart, and the meaning. This is Ka Ning Don Sum. A little bit strange, this expression. Ka Ka as in mouth, literally mouth, Ning as in heart, and Dun as in meaning. And I had the translators search the database for thousands and thousands of Tibetan texts that are searchable. This grouping of Ka, Ning, Dun, Sum occurs only one place, and it's here. No one else uses this. So the sense I get here is he's saying the mouth, the heart, and the meaning has to coalesce, has to come together. In other words, like single-mindedly. So, when we sit and practice, we chant like bodhicitta, all mother sentient beings, boundless as the sky, especially those enemies who hate me. So that saying of those words is the mouth, right? Then the ning, the heart, has to be present. You cannot just be mouthing those words. Your mind is somewhere else. So your mouth, your mind or heart, and the meaning of what is being said, this needs to come together in a single point. Propelled by the lack of dishonesty in terms of body, speech, and mind. Dishonesty here really means, it's not like the body, speech, and mind is, it's not like lying, but lying in the sense of, so the opposite of lying, meaning body, speech, and mind are totally present. And so it cannot be that the mouth is just saying these prayers, but the mind is somewhere else, and the hands are doing something else. So all three has to be together. So this is, anyway, continuing with the teaching. Practicing in this way without thinking about anything else. You may practice the stages of the great vehicle and the secret mantra Vajra vehicle with your body, speech, and mind fully united in bodhicitta. In this way, then lay out a cushion in an isolated location while abiding in the 5 factors of meditative concentration. These are the 5 steps of making sure that the mind is completely focused. It's called applied thought, meaning directing the thought, our thoughts, sustained attention, joy, ease, and single-pointedness. So it says, when these 5 come together, while abiding in the 5 factors, while being guided with the support of these 5 factors, then contemplate death and impermanence, karmic cause and effect, and the faults of samsara, just enough to get a taste of them, before then meditating at length based on the bodhicitta that has previously arisen. Meaning based on the bodhicitta that has arisen when we first took the bodhisattva vow. It can also mean based on the bodhicitta motivation that has been built over time. Propelled by this bodhicitta, then visualize the idam deity, visualize the sublime guru upon the crown of your head, engender the perception that the guru is the Buddha, and make supplications. So up until now, it's basically 3 of the 5-fold profound path of Mahamudra, beginning with bodhicitta Mahamudra, which he said quite a bit. Then idam Mahamudra, just 1 line. He says, visualize the idam deity. Here understood as yourself as idam deity. It doesn't explicitly say, it just says visualize the idam deity. But we should know ourselves. Then visualize the sublime guru upon the crown of your head and engender, train in the perception that the guru is the Buddha and make supplications to the guru. And this is the Guru Mahamudra. So bodhicitta Mahamudra, idam Mahamudra, Guru devotion Mahamudra. Then the next section, the longer section in this teaching, is about the natural state Mahamudra, the 4th of the 5-fold Mahamudra, those of you who have not heard of this before, the Fivefold Mahamudra is the main system in which Jigten Sumgön trained his students in the practice of Mahamudra. So this next section, the natural state Mahamudra. The root of misery in samsara, as well as the source of nirvana's happiness, is this brilliantly lucid awareness that is the mind. The Bhagavan has taught this in the Vajra snare of the glorious Vajra Dakinis. Quote, through meditating upon the Supreme Buddha in this life, one too awakens as the Buddha. There is no Buddha nor sentient being that is apart from this precious mind. Unquote. The great Brahmin Saraha, who was prophesied by the Bhagavan as being a valid being, and was also the preceptor and teacher of the great Acharya Noble Nagarjuna, likewise taught, quote, this mind alone is the seed of all. From it, existence and nirvana are projected. To this precious mind of bodhicitta, the source of everything desirable, I pay homage. Unquote. There are many other such quotations throughout the Gangyo, the words of the Buddha, and the Tengyur, their commentarial treatises, that describe how the root of samsara and nirvana is this mind of yours. And now the rest of the teaching is in verse form. Just like water poured into water and butter mixed with butter, practice leaving alone mind in mind itself by habituating this at length. Or even with a momentary instance of mind, it is the single remedy for the three worlds, the essence of the exalted body, speech, and mind of all the Buddhists of the three times. As noble Acharya Saraha has thus taught, I pay homage and prostrate, homage and prostrate. I pay homage, homage, homage and prostrate. Yet how is it that one praises and pay homage? Who is being praised and who is doing the praising? Just like water poured into water and butter mixed with butter, one truly sees one's own primordial wisdom, and it is to this that one pays homage to. One shall come to understand and gain certainty in the meaning of these very teachings by continuously habituating oneself to the samadhi in which you possess such understanding. Your state of meditative equipoise will grow longer and longer, and your post-meditation state grows shorter and shorter. When one attains before too long the non-duality of meditative equipoise and post-meditation, that is the luminous and blissful Dharmakaya. What need is there to even mention other samadhis? I therefore request you, O great meditators, meditate always on your own mind. If by putting down into writing this precious treasure of the awakened mind, that is the life essence of the four classes of Dakinis, you Dakinis of the three worlds are displeased, I pray that you display your sublime patience as you lovingly nurture like your own children all individuals engaged in this practice and bestow upon us your blessings. This virtue I dedicate to supreme enlightenment. And the last line is the fifth of the Fivefold Path, which is dedication Mahamudra. And so this is the second teaching that has been translated. This is about 5.5 pages. The last one is only about 2.5 pages. They are just verses. This is a combination of prose and verses. This was about 5.5 pages on those Tibetan page. And this completes the practice of Mahamudra, the life essence of the Dakinis. So yeah. Any questions or comments?
Yes. Can you
Mhm.
go a little bit, explain more about the natural state Mahamudra? I mean, that's the hardest part for me.
Yeah, no, cannot.
No? Okay.
Not much to say at this point. It is actually also the content, of the first translation. The treasuring the understanding of the nature of mind. Mm. Same topic, not much to say except that it is this mind, this very mind. What is this mind? What is this every mind? This very mind? That which knows. The one who knows. Who is the one who knows? The one who knows is the Buddha. Who is the Buddha? The Buddha is the one who knows. What knows? The mind knows. What is the mind? The mind is the one that knows. What is it? It's Buddha. So for now, distinguishing between mind and activities of the mind, being able to see directly which is the heart, which is the activities of the heart, and developing some ability to watch this mind is the beginning of understanding the natural state of Mahamudra. So what is this, that knows? The one who knows. The one who knows is Buddha. That's why we say Buddha is not separate from your mind. So right now we can say your mind is the one that knows. But right now the mind is not quite Buddha, at least not in our experience. But nonetheless, it says it is the one who knows. And so the example here, he says, I pay homage and prostrate, pay homage to prostrate. Who is paying homage? Who is prostrating? And to whom are we prostrating to? To whom are we paying homage to? So last time I talked about in the Chan or Zen tradition, it's the same question. It says, what is it? Who is it? Shishama, what is it? Shishama, what is it? Or in the combined practice of Chan and Amitabha Pure Land, where you begin by training a single pointed mind in chanting the name of Amitabha. Then eventually you raise this question, what they called in the Chan tradition, this koan. It's who is reciting the Buddha's name? Who? So in that case, the main investigating, the main kind of, you could say prompt is, in Chinese, is 是谁? 是谁念佛? 是谁? 是谁 and 是什么? Who is it? What is it? Likewise here, Gilbert Rinpoche is asking us to raise this koan, to raise this question. He says here, as Noble Acharya Saraha has taught, and then the quote, and this is probably a quote from some text, I pay homage and prostrate, I homage and prostrate, I pay homage, homage, homage and prostrate. And it says, okay, so there's lots of things like this, Then now, ask, yet how is it that one praises and pay homage? Who is being praised and who is doing the praising? Just like water poured into water and butter mixed with butter, one can truly see one's own primordial wisdom. And when you see that, then that is true paying homage. It is nothing but the mind. Which is the topic of what we've been looking at. Vajra statement 6.2, 6.3. This is all about this mind. 6.2 says, all our perceptions of reality, that which we consider as reality, that is all phenomena included in samsara and nirvana are one's mind. 6.2. 6.3. All phenomena are the embodiments of momentary thoughts. So, in a sense, you could say 6.3 prevents us from objectifying mind as something substantial. Because from 6.2, you might say all phenomena included in samsara and nirvana are one's mind. Then we might relate to this mind as some sort of super God, super soul, super consciousness, like people like to talk about, kind of in pop spirituality, new age, like the universal mind, the universal consciousness, or sometimes unconsciousness, making it into something. Because it seems to be saying that when it says all phenomena included in samsara and nirvana are one's own mind, then 6.3 quickly tells you, and all phenomena are the embodiments of momentary thoughts. So even this mind is to be understood as momentary in nature, just momentary thoughts. So again, we're talking about this mind, whatever label that we have for it, momentary thoughts, ordinary mind, ordinary consciousness, nature of mind, rigpa, and so on and so forth. We are fundamentally talking about the same topic, the same thing, so to say. So all phenomena are the embodiments of momentary thoughts. So then in Choda's commentary, in the Nimanangwa, which is what this book is really about, translation of Nimanangwa, Choda says, well, we can look at this from the three contexts. One context is our present moment, like right now, right here. How we can see the principle presented in this Vajra statement. How can you see this principle while now, here, in the present? Then how we can understand this principle when we leave behind this body and have to take a new body. So what we commonly call death, here called transference. In fact, Pawa has become such a specific practice. The broader meaning of Pawa really means death, what we would call death. So you either Pawa into some lower realms, into some lower existence, into some lower life, or higher, or Buddha's land, or enlightenment. So you either go. So literally Pawa is to go. So it's like what we say, like I think like sometimes we use Pawa to mean such a specific practice that we forget that in the Tibetan, it's very close to the equivalent. It's like, oh, when I go, I will have no regrets, or, I'm not ready to go, literally to go. So he says, then this principle about all phenomena, all experiences are the embodiments of momentary thought. When we apply this principle to the time when we have to go, how does it play out? And then the third one, as I said, is maybe not so practical, to us, because it is about body swapping. So apparently that was an important context for Chodra to explain to his audience. Probably there were a bunch of body swappings or reports of body swappings in Chodra's time. Yeah, all kinds of mysterious things happens. Who knows? In our own time, we have alien abduction. I used to think this is kind of, yeah, whatever. But I actually have been starting to read more about this phenomenon of alien abduction. I do not literally at this point believe that alien abduction happens, but I do now take more seriously people's experiences of alien abduction and what that could mean. So something is going on, it's just maybe we don't have yet a good way to talk about what the heck is going on, but definitely something is going on, we cannot deny that. Anyway, so I would say the third example by Chodra is our modern example of alien abductions, alien probes or whatever. It's like, I don't know, Anyway. So then last time we met, we looked at how in the context of present, not in the context of, like in the context of this life, not when you're actively dying and when you have to go. So two examples was given, the example of Dampa Yarpo and the example of the leper, right? Those two examples. Then, if you look at 536, the embodiments of momentary thoughts during the time of death. And here he says, on page 536, Chodra says there are four. Even though, so four like possibilities of how, essentially what he's going to talk about here is that because every moment of experience is the manifestation or the embodiment of moments, momentariness, then all sorts of possibilities can take place, which is really the kind of the main thrust of this statement. As last time we looked at how the statement primarily corrects the error of thinking because karma is a matter that involves so many lifetimes from one perspective. Sometimes if we take that out of context, or we take that to an extreme, then our understanding of the law of cause and effect can imprison us, can cause us to be frozen into thinking there's nothing you can change about your circumstances, or there's even nothing you can change about your mind because you see karma as something so fixed. When in fact, the statement is going to show how it is not that fixed. Yes, there is a fixed pattern that karma operates on. But how fixed it is doesn't mean that we are stuck. If we are stuck, it's because of a choice that we have made due to an error of understanding or completely not understanding. And so in other words, as much as Kyopa Rinpoche emphasizes the incontrovertible, that means unmistaken workings of cause and effect, he is not saying that it's fated or like it has to happen. When you plant a negative seed, it will ripen as a negative sprout unless you do something in between those two things. If you don't do anything, then guaranteed whatever seed you plant the corresponding sprout will appear. But all sorts of things can happen in between those two temporal points, so that it is not fixed, it is not fated. And most importantly, understanding the momentariness of all phenomena gives us an understanding of how in every moment there is the possibility of being freed from this trap, from being freed of this dream. So here, 4 possibilities, he says. A, even though you have previously produced immeasurable virtuous karma, if you are connected with non-virtue at death, you will proceed to the lower realms, as in the case of the Dharma king Ashoka. So according to Buddhist belief, King Ashoka, while he accumulated a lot of merit, when he turned his life over to Dharma, at the very end, it is said that because of a non-virtuous moment appearing at the last moment of his life, then it propelled him, it pushed him into a negative rebirth in his next life. So this is what Chodra is saying. Furthermore, today there are many spiritual teachers who, through some Dharma systems of teaching and practice, engage in perverted activities and are born as Gongpo demons. So Chodra is saying, in his own time, there are in fact many spiritual teachers, because of being misguided, misunderstanding the teachings and practices, right? Then they turn, right, the Dharma into perverted activities. These are particularly like Vajrayana practices done wrong. Then they are born as Gongpo demons, a type of demons. Yeah. B, moreover, even though you have previously engaged only in evil deeds, if you are connected with virtue at death, you will obtain a happy rebirth, as in the case of the hunter from Pagyo. At present, too, it is like some evildoers who, through their connection with such practices as transference of consciousness, so this is Powa, the way we talk about Powa, obtain a human body and stop birth. It's also possible that you have primarily engaged in non-virtue, but when the time of death comes, some kind of virtue you're connected to, then that changes everything. But here, it is not saying that the respective virtue and non-virtue that maybe you have been accumulating your whole life has gone wasted. They're not, unless something has also happened to destroy them. Yeah? So let's say, right, in the first case, in the first very scenario, he says how you might have accumulated virtue your whole life, right? And in the last moment, some sort of non-virtuous thought turns up. You become very angry. And then the very next life, and this is called like, so it is understood that the last moment of mind that is present when you exit a particular lifetime, that is the main propelling force, right, that will push you to the next rebirth. So one example of that is perhaps, or then the next scenario is, mostly non-virtue, but in the next moment, or in the last moment, you have something virtuous coming that you're connected with, your mind. Then you are born into a good place, a good rebirth. So generally, for example, we say a human rebirth is most excellent, especially for Dharma practice. For a good time, rebirth in the God realms is better. But for Dharma practice generally, best born as a human. But there are human beings who are born into this world who their entire lives, their entire existence as a human, absolutely no chance of encountering the Dharma. But not only that, maybe even suffering a lot. So then you can see how perhaps in the last moment, right, of their previous life, it was a virtuous moment that propelled them into a human rebirth. But because as well, most of their other karmic forces are negative. And so even though with a human life, no opportunity to practice Dharma, and mostly surrounded by suffering and misery. Conversely, maybe whole life, in the previous life, mostly virtuous. Then in the last moment, something less virtuous happens, right? Then they are reborn as yours, cats and dogs. Carolyn's, dog, Judy's cats, hey, way better life than many humans. But then the non-virtue, makes it such that it's hard for them to take advantage of even a good life, not just good and comfortable good life, well taken care of, in case they need surgery, they will get the surgery they need, and even a chance to watch Dharma and stare at the screen. But probably for the most part, it's like no idea what is being said. C. Further still, even though you do not have much accumulation of virtuous or evil karma, if you are connected with virtue at death, you will obtain a happy rebirth, as in the case of a female servant of King Brahmadatta of Kashika. D. Even further, it is as if, without having accumulated much virtue or evil, you're connected with non-virtue at death and you're reborn in lower realms. Such cases are therefore embodiments of thoughts occurring in a single moment. As the Manjushri Namasangiti says, every moment is distinguished. He attains Buddhahood in a single moment. Query, question. Do these four not contradict the inevitable effectiveness of virtue and non-virtue? Yes. So this is a question immediately, right? He raises this because he knows, we'll say, wait, especially Kyopa Rinpoche, Jigten Sumgun, Gongchik always say, the incontrovertible, here translated as the inevitable effectiveness of virtue and non-virtue. Reply, it is not contradictory. Since the juncture of death is very powerful and extremely propulsive, extremely propelling, propulsive, the virtuous or evil karma at that moment will inevitably arise in the later body that is the support. The fruition of the virtuous and non-virtuous actions that one has accumulated prior to that powerful moment at death will successfully arise without waste, as inevitably effective. As it is said, wherever you proceed, a place untroubled by karma does not exist. Wherever you proceed within samsara. So here we learn a few things. One, that last moment of mind in each lifetime is extremely powerful. So that's one thing that we learned. So he's saying here, that moment is extremely, very powerful and extremely propulsive. It determines the shape, the kind of body and existence that you will get in the next moment. But then whatever virtue or non-virtue that needs to ripen will ripen accordingly, successively. No matter what existence that your last moment propel you to. So this, is why it's emphasized so much that the moment of death is an important one, because we get a chance there to powerfully change course. Now, this could powerfully change course in a negative way, or powerfully change course in a positive way. Likewise, when things become very difficult, as if we are experiencing a death, a mini death, then during that time, it's also very powerful for us to change. So when we're experiencing extreme suffering, in a way, that is a powerful moment. Likewise, if we're experiencing extreme happiness, extreme bliss, that's also very powerful. That's why, and you all probably know, there are some Vajrayana techniques that's been taught, to utilize like the mind, that ordinary is the powerful mind of pleasure that is experienced in an orgasm, being transformed to realize emptiness. But those are, very advanced teachings. In fact, the texts basically say, as long as you have ordinary like sexual desire, then that method is not going to work for you to use. So sorry, bad news. But that's just an example, meaning that when the mind is very powerfully engrossed in pleasure or pain, great opportunity lies there for something, both positively and negatively, to change. Third example, or the third context, the embodiments of thoughts of a single moment when the body changes, but not through death. This is like the cases of the novice who transformed into a naga and the disciple of the old monk Gyatso from Shuke, who practiced the naga accomplishment and thereby changed into a naga. Thus, what is summarized by way of mind, action, and result is the embodiment of the thoughts of a single moment, and what arises through the dependent origination of the grouping of the three, mind, action, and result, is what was taught in the Mindfulness Sutra, namely, what was taught to be like the example of the painter, which is a profound vital point. So the footnote tells us the mind is compared to a skillful painter. Due to his skill, he can paint different images with different colors. Similarly, the mind creates the different realms of birth through anger, desire, ignorance, and so forth. One can find an elaborate illustration in the illustrative story section of this chapter in the Dorshema. Jigten Gompo said, amid Lord Pragmodukva's teaching on appearance being one's mind, I found this embodiment of thought. Therefore, it is uncertain whether cause and result arise as the phenomena experienced in the same life, in the next life, or several lifetimes, and so on. So he says, it's hard to say, whether it will ripen in this moment, in the next moment, in the next week, next month, next life, or many lifetimes to come. And with the help of understanding these three, it is certain that such embodiment of the thought of a single moment does occur. The Abhisamaya Lankara says, as everything is agitated in an instant, When a person sets the string of the water wheel into motion in a single go, gnosis is instantaneous. Through this Vajra statement, the point, appearances are one's mind, is also clearly taught. And so this point and the last point is closely related. Note 6.3, he tells us in the Dorshema, it says, the general view is in this, that is being addressed here in this statement is, a great many people say that present appearances, so present experiences, whatever we experience in the present time, present life, they are the maturation of virtuous and non-virtuous results accumulated a long time ago. And the result of any virtue and evil accumulated now will not arise immediately, but only at a later time. This statement says, no, it can arise even in this moment or in the next moment. Rinchen Changchuk first points out that this topic is rather difficult to understand through words alone. So that's really important, As much as we study and we try to understand, through words alone, you cannot really understand all of this. Through words alone, natural state, Mahamudra, cannot really be understood. Through words alone, even bodhicitta, even relative bodhicitta, cannot really give us what we want. All three commentaries agree that this teaching is a particular case of appearance being one's mind. Like the present commentary, the Dorshema divides experience into two: Mahamudra, or true reality, which is the embodiment of no thoughts, and all the rest, which is the embodiment of thoughts. The Dorshema describes that embodiment as follows. While there arises insight within one's mental continuum, a virtuous or non-virtuous thought construction, something homologous to the result, that is an arising of the various respective virtuous or non-virtuous thoughts, is accomplished as an embodiment of that thought. This accomplishment is called embodiment of the thought. This is, we can say, another way of saying this is everything is mental formations. So in some Theravada traditions of meditation, currently popular among Theravada communities, there is emphasis on, in terms of the five aggregates, right? So there is form as one of the aggregates, then feeling or sensation, perception, mental formations, and finally, consciousness. Form and consciousness, when they come together, then it sets into motion the other three. And of the three, in some Theravada, modern Theravada systems of meditation, they emphasize that pay attention to mental formations, because it's right there where our experiences begin to combine in a way that will make us create virtue and non-virtue. And so it says everything is mental formations. Everything is formations. Samskara. Samskara, not samsara. Samskara. Everything is formations, mental formations. So same as here, I would say. Everything is the embodiment of the thought. The result to which the embodiment of the thought is homologous must refer to the karmic result that arises when the virtuous or non-virtuous thought construction turns into a willful action of body or speech. But each afflicted thought is nevertheless already either virtuous or non-virtuous in itself, and according to this teaching, there is also an immediate embodiment of such thoughts. Choki Drakpa explains that the thought is an embodiment within a mental appearance. Dorje Sherab says, by way of illustration, all this is as follows. When a fierce hatred arises within oneself, all appearances turn into a redness, which is like the ground of burning iron. The other negative thoughts are similar to that. That is, to someone with hostile thoughts, outer appearances appear as hostile. So in reverse, when we experience, right, a hostile person, situation, scenario, be able to see that that is the embodiment of hostile thoughts or hostile potentials that we already have within us that is now ripening and therefore projecting, like a movie projector, projecting out a hostile environment. Dorje Sherab briefly refers to the story of Netso, the son of the Brahmin Tutaya, and a dog called Conchal. So story time. Once the Buddha went on alms round and came to the house of Netso. Inside the house, a dog named Conchal was lying on a piece of white cloth. His earthen bowl was filled with fine food. When the dog saw the Buddha, he barked. When the Buddha remarked on his untamed nature, the dog became very angry and hid under a bed. When Netso came home, he saw the state of his beloved dog and asked what had happened. When his family told him what had happened, he became angry at the Buddha. The Buddha perceived this and told his monks that Netso would certainly have been reborn in hell had he died at the very moment of anger. So the Buddha said, ooh, this guy, if in this moment he dies, he will definitely be born in a hell realm. Netso went to the Buddha and asked him why his dog was born as a dog. The Buddha replied that the dog had been Netso's father, Tutaya, but Netso did not believe that. So the Buddha told him to give good food to the dog and ask him where he had hidden all his treasures in his past life. The dog led him to a house where after some digging, his father's treasures were found. Netso became devoted to the Buddha, who said to his monks, if Netso were to die at this very moment, he would be reborn in heaven. So here also we learn that when our virtuous or non-virtuous body, speech, and mind actions is directed at different targets, then the quality of karma produced is also different. In other words, if it is directed to, let's say, a small thing, then the result is small. But if it is directed to a big thing, the result is big. So big and small here are talking about like the difference between if you direct your anger towards a pebble, the effect of that is small. But if you direct it towards a Buddha, the same amount of anger, but directed at a Buddha, the effect is really huge. If you direct your love, right, and kindness to something small, then the result is correspondingly. If you direct it to something great, and here it will be something like to someone who has been very kind to you, if you direct your kindness to them, not out of attachment, but recognizing their kindness, if you show your kindness and gratefulness to them, it will also result in great results. So it does matter, right, where these actions of body, speech, and mind, towards whom or what it is directed at, and producing corresponding results. So in this case, is this person first in one moment getting very angry with the Buddha because he sees that his dog is not happy, and he asks, what happened? They say, oh, the Buddha came by today. Oh, it must be this Buddha causing my dog to be angry. So he got very angry. Then Buddha guided him what to do, and he discovered a bunch of treasures that his father buried away. Oh, now he has a lot of faith and devotion in the Buddha. So then the result is also very strong. As the end of the above story already indicates, pure thoughts also have immediate consequences. Dorje Sherab says, when loving kindness, compassion, and the resolve for awakening arise, all appearances suddenly become blissful. The accomplishment of benefit and bliss through all exterior appearances is Sukhavati or Akanishta. So when we talk about the Pure Lands, such as Sukhavati, such as Akanishta, what are we talking about? We are talking about when the mind is absorbed in love, compassion, and bodhicitta, then all appearances become blissful. All appearances turn into Sukhavati, turns into Akanishta. Deity practice too is an embodiment, since, quote, as one practices and as realization arises within, it is vividly actualized as the embodiment of a thought, unquote. This is like the case of Dampayarpo. So we already talked about this, Dampayarpo and the leper. Then page 540, the teaching of an embodiment of momentary thoughts is, on the other hand, what we might describe as a type of psychological effect, as in the case where everything appears red, like burning hatred, or blissful through one's cultivation of love. However, the intention of the teaching goes somewhat further, namely that an embodiment occurs on the spot as the very body of the practitioner. Rinchen Changchup explains. Therefore, as thoughts, so Sobish is saying, yes, so there is a psychological effect, the way we think of this. But he says, but for our commentaries, it's more than this what we call the psychological effect of an angry mind or a relaxed, stress-free mind. It goes more than that. It goes beyond that. So here, Rinchen Changchup Rinjangma says, therefore, as thoughts are unstable in each moment, through the vital point of the non-existence of appearances, meaning the non-existence of appearances as something separate and independent out there. Therefore, as thoughts are unstable in each moment, through the vital point, through the key understanding that of the non-existence of appearances, apart from the mind, the various phenomena are also momentary and unstable. This mountain of Gampo, too, is not yesterday's mountain. You think that this Zhangpo River is yesteryear's swift-running Zhangpo, but if you analyze and investigate correctly, yesteryear's Zhangpo River has now gone to the Eastern Ocean. This is the same as the Greek philosopher that says, you can never enter the same river twice. Superficially, you say, the Blue Ridge Mountain that I look at today is the same as yesterday. It says, no, it's not. Because not only your perception changes in every moment, but in fact, right, everything has changed with those mountains. Same with the river. Rinchen Changchup understands this as a great opportunity. So this is the important part. So what the heck does it help to know, Oh, the Blue Ridge is not the same Blue Ridge. The Mississippi River is not the same river. The Ganga River is not the same river. Here is the take-home point, the take-home lesson. If one understands the manner of being conditioned and unstable in this way, then at that point, the removal of defects is easy and the completion of qualities is also easy. Mistakes can be purified. Qualities can be developed. Precisely because of how unstable every moment is. How dynamic is another way to look at it if you want to give a positive swing, twist. If you are in the negative state of mind, you say, oh, everything is unstable, it's so disappointing. But a switch of perspective, everything is dynamic. He asserts that through a leper's practice of the exalted Lord of Secrets, Vajrapani, the body sickness is purified and disappears. As in the case of Jigten Sumgun, he cured his own leprosy through his practice in the Echong cave. Not only that, but he also realized the dependent origination of cause and result and the state of Vajradhara, since he knew both the means for the removal of the disease and for completing the qualities. Therefore, the removal of defects and the completion of qualities arose simultaneously and instantaneously, and not in a distant future. Apart from such instantaneous embodiments during one's lifetime, our commentaries also explain the same process of an immediate embodiment at the moment of death. So then those four possibilities are mentioned. And the stories. This is a very important one regarding Toa. Look at 541 at the bottom. All three commentaries point out that it is of profound importance to create a good connection or motivation at the time of death, since, as Choki Drakpa says, quote, the juncture of death is very powerful and extremely propulsive, unquote. However, since karma is infallible and will inevitably arise during later births or later in the next life, not just later births, but later in the next life, the previously accumulated virtue or non-virtue will not be lost. The Dorshema and the Rinjangma add at this point a profound instruction on the manner of caring for a dying person. So this is what I wanted you to call your attention to. Rinchen Changchup says, if you are trying to benefit an untrained or evil person who is about to die, it is not helpful to motivate him through fear. So this is addressing those people who might say, to a dying person, oh, you better change your ways. You better repent to your sins. All the evil things that you have done, you're going to go to hell. Da, 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 da. So apparently, there are even Buddhists who say this. Maybe in our time, we're more familiar with like Christians telling people, oh, you better repent your sins, otherwise you'll burn in hell. You should change, you're about to die. You should accept Jesus Christ as Lord and Savior, da, da, da. Right? There's also Buddhist equivalent. Sometimes people do that, apparently. That's why Rinchen Changchup has to say this, If you're trying to benefit an untrained or evil person who is about to die, it is not helpful to motivate him through fear. Determine what type of motivation is appropriate for this person and alter this person's mind in a manner that accords with that. This is the very profound, vital point of consciousness transference of POA. Exclamation point. To block the 9 openings, on the other hand, is not profound. What is this referring to? This is referring to actually the more technical, the more mechanical aspects of Powa practice, calling, which is called to block the 9 openings. So there are like Powa instructions where it says, you know, you use your mind and place like a Hong syllable to seal all the other 9 openings. So the dying person is to think, you know, to visualize a Hong blocking this nose, a Hong blocking this nose, Hong blocking this ear, Hong blocking this opening, Hong blocking the eye, left eye, right eye, right nostril, left nostril, mouth, left ear, right ear, and the 2 lower openings, the anus and the vagina or the penis, to block all this with Hong, 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 Hong. So there are Powa instructions like this. Yeah. You seal those, you plug those 9 holes so that your consciousness don't leave through the 9 holes, but leave through the 10th, which is this one here. Here, Minjangma says, yes, there are instructions like that, but that is not as profound as what is just said here. Determine what type of motivation is appropriate for the dying person and try to alter that person's mind in a manner that accords with that. This is the very profound point of Powa. Not in all those technical things. You see how, you know, like Kyopa Rinpoche's way of understanding practice and Dharma. He not only warns us against not getting too stuck, too kind of like assured, even more dangerous is getting too self-assured. When we think we have mastered all the different logical presentation and philosophy and reasonings provided in a systematic study of Dharma. Analysis, conclusion, therefore, you know, debate, logic, reasoning, all those are given for sure, you know. Likewise, in the realm of practice, all kinds of sophisticated or seemingly sophisticated technical details, you know, block your breath this way, you know, lay on this side of the body, stand like this, sit like that, lie down like that. All of that, those instructions are there. Actually, elsewhere, Kyopa Rinpoche would give help on how to actually do those things. But he says, you know, even more important and more profound than that is something else. It's on the level of changing the mind. And even all those things, placing 9 hongs, they are just like techniques to help us to see that it's changing the mind. That is the final determinant. So simply, you know, having a hole open here through the practice of like visualizing your consciousness poking up here and then putting a straw as a sign, it's not emphasized. That's why in Drigung Powa, we don't really emphasize putting a blade of grass. Other traditions, when they do Powa retreat, they have this, you know, they insert this and say, oh, look, you know, this is a sign. And I think it's really because, you know, Jilin Sungpan is like, those are secondary. Don't get excited over those things. So whether it's a blade, a grass standing on top of your head, you know, or, you know, through debate, you have reached the prasangika view of emptiness. He says, both of these, while helpful, potentially helpful, can be helpful, they are not it. According to a public teaching of Jigten Sungön, one method would be, so based on this idea, based on this principle, one method would be to appeal to the loving concern that a dying person feels for his mother, whom he now leaves behind. So in one public teaching or collection that we are translating now, this is all called Sokcho, public teachings. In one of the teachings in there, Jigten Sungön told his disciples, you appeal to the loving concern that a dying person feels for his mother, whom he now leaves behind. So you get them to think lovingly about their mother. And then there it says, then at the very least, even if this person isn't, quite reborn in Amitabha's Pure Land, this person will be born in the higher realm where the Brahma gods reside. And then he goes on to say, and the Brahma gods we know, most of them are on the 8th level, bodhisattva level. He says, it cannot be a bad thing to be born amongst so many 8th level bodhisattvas. So lead this person to that rebirth. So for our purposes, right, in the mix, in the different cultural contexts, especially those of you who have family or maybe parents who are deeply, right, deeply kind of in the world of, say, Catholicism, when the time comes for their death, don't try to talk to them about Amitabha and all of that stuff, because that's not helpful to them. And if they have fear, if they have worries, if they have concerns, and if they are deeply Catholic, you do poa to Jesus for them, adapting it to them. Don't hick and ga, all those things, and pet, No, you encourage them, you teach, you remind them, and say, Jesus and all the angels and the Mother Mary, they are waiting to welcome you, into heaven. So then let go now. Don't worry about us now. Nothing to worry about. This, you're going to be loved and cared for. Or if they are not religious, if they are more secular, then if you can appeal to how maybe they have, maybe you have another parent who has passed on, you can say, oh, you will get to see them now. You will get to reunite with them now. So yes, of course, from another perspective, it's still attachment, but at least it's not anger if you have to choose. Yeah? At least it's attached to something that is loving. So as appropriate, you help provide. In other words, we can say you help provide a good death. And you have to figure out, as it says here, determine what kind of motivation is appropriate for that person and alter their mind in a manner that accords with their particular conditioning. However, there are also many other ways in which this teaching can be applied, even by accomplished yogis. Thus, to connect one's consciousness at the moment of death with luminosity is not different from the above procedure in terms of applying the same principle. Results could be different and is different, but the same principle operates. Yogis of lesser quality should direct their last thought toward one of the Buddha fields, such as the Sukhavati of Amitabha. So this point is really important, really helpful. Any questions or comments? The last paragraph is talking about swapping bodies, so you can read it on yourself. Questions, comments? No? Wow.
I have a question.
Yes.
In the Karma Kagyu tradition, which I've studied with,
Mm-hmm.
and having done the POA empowerment and practicing that from time to time, at least once a week, the Sangha members have often said that at the time of death, try to go to the Pure Land of Amitabha. So my question is,
That is the same for all POA traditions. Doesn't, yeah.
Right.
So it's not unique. Just to point
so,
out.
so just reading this, I think this is probably an ego thing on my part, but those of lesser lesser ability at the time of death seek Pure Land. So the confusion I have, or letting go of improper ambition, or I don't know what it is for me, but does that mean at the time of death that I should just do that, or should I
You do what is appropriate to you.
All right.
Elsewhere in more extensive POA teachings, it says there are 5 types of POA. There's a Dharmakaya POA, Sambhogakaya POA, Nirmanakaya POA. There is the POA of the hook of compassion, and there is the POA of the 3 vital points. The POA that you are talking about, and it doesn't matter whether it's Karma Kagyu, Dugun Kagyu, Gelugpa, Sakyapa, Nyingma, the typical POA is the POA of 3 vital points. The mind as the traveler, as the object that will go, meaning understanding that it's not the body that goes, it's not your reputation that goes, it's not your fame that goes, it's not your identity that goes, it's the mind that goes. First recognition. Second recognition, the path in which it will travel is the central channel. So you have to train in the meditating of the central channel, how it goes up, don't go down the central channel. Second recognition. Third recognition, the destination is the heart of Amitabha. In some Gelug, POA is Chenrezig, but most common is Amitabha. So that's called the POA with the 3 recognitions. And in the listing of the 5, there's Dharmakaya POA. Then Dharmakaya POA is here, it says, the POA of luminosity. Yeah, anecdotally, one time, Lama Yeshe, the famous Lama Yeshe who passed away many years ago, one of the first few Western Tibetan Lamas to teach in the West. Lama Yeshe then, Lama Zupa, right now, Foundation for the Preservation of Mahayana Tradition. Lama Zopa was Lama Yeshe's student, a younger student. One time, I read somewhere, Lama Yeshe said, yes, you guys keep asking for POA instructions because his students must have heard about POA from other places or other traditions. Then Lama Yeshe said, what? You don't plan to achieve Buddhahood with the other instructions, and so you're buying your insurance policy? So there's a sense like, the kind of POA that we ordinarily do is some kind of insurance policy in case we cannot achieve freedom through all the other teachings that you can do when you're alive. Then at the moment of death, you have some insurance policy. Then the Dharmakaya Poa in Mahamudra tradition is to poa into the heart of your guru. Transfer your mind, or basically you, like I said, sometimes when we say my consciousness goes to the Pure Land, the problem is like that translation is technically accurate, which is what the Tibetan says, Rangi Shepa, my consciousness goes to Amitabha's Pure Land. But the problem in literally translating that is that then we, who is not used to that, not used to saying my consciousness, like how often do you talk about things that way, right? Then you are stuck in a situation of like, oh wait, my consciousness goes to the Pure Land. What about the rest of me? So more accurately, when it says my consciousness, it means you. Whatever you think you are, that you is going. So you are going to the Pure Land. Here, Mahamudra transference, the Dharmakaya transference, is to transfer into the heart of the Guru. What is the heart of the Guru? It's the Buddha mind. Dissolve your mind into the Guru's mind. Then that is the supreme transference.
Thank you. That was wonderful.
And the broader context of this example of like Poa ordinarily understood, to appreciate like the irony and therefore the power of this statement is, now I'm not being partial here, but it's, I think, recognized in Tibetan history. Of all Poa practices, the most famous one is the Drigung Poa across all traditions. Everybody in Tibet knows Drigung Poa. And it is the kind of Poa that we're talking about, central channel, a drop in the center of the heart, that is the essence of your consciousness. Then you do hik, 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 to the top and dissolving in Amitabha, or to the top of your crown, coming back down. So that Poa, and Drigung Poa is universally famous in Tibet. Whenever there is a once every 12-year Drigung Poa transmission, people travel all over Tibet to go to Drigung to receive this Poa transmission. It is said that if you have received Drigung Poa transmission from one of the two heads of Drigung, Tibetans believe, even if you don't do the practice, when the time comes, you will go to Amitabha's Pure Land. So everybody goes to Drigung to receive the Poa. A few 100,000 people went the last time this was done. So Drigung Poa is very famous in Tibetan history, Tibetan culture. So much so, like, for example, when His Holiness Drigung Kyabgon was in New York City the last couple of times, and they organized, the Tibetans organized a Poa transmission. They don't even need to announce or make flyers or posters or anything. Just by word of mouth, right? 2,000 people turn up because Drigung Poa is given, and it is in that context, that it's saying, even that is not a profound point. That technical meditation is not as profound as understanding. Determine what kind of motivation is appropriate for that person and alter that person's mind in a manner that will work with that person's level of understanding. That is the most profound principle when you are working with Poa. So if the person has a Catholic mind, you have to work with a Catholic mind. If the person has a secular mind, you have to work with a secular mind. If the person has a Baptist mind, you have to work with a Baptist mind. If the person has a Pure Land Amitabha mind, you work with the Pure Land of Amitabha mind. If the person have the nature of mind, you work with the nature of mind. And if you have the power of communicating, let's say, with your dog, then when the time comes for poa for your dog, all dogs go to doggy heaven. You have to work with the dog on the dog's terms, is what it's basically saying. Now, I don't know if we have the ability to work on that level, but the principle is you have to work on the terms of whoever that is going. For many Tibetans, Amitabha's Pure Land is the place that everybody wants to go. So work with that. And that's why this other kind of poa is so popular among Tibetans, because culturally, going to Amitabha's Pure Land. In fact, no matter what practice you do, at the end, you say, oh, may I go to Amitabha's Pure Land? Changchu Semchu Rinpoche Ma Ge Ba Nam Ge Yu Je Ge Ba Nyam Pa Me Pa Gong Ne Gong Du Pe War Shu. Wednesday we'll continue with Vajra statement 4. It's still related to Vajra statements 6.2, 6.3, and 6.4 are related. 6.4 addresses another potential straying from 6.2 and 6.3. 6.2 and 6.3 emphasizes the power of being able to change your experiences, your surroundings, your situation. 6.4 is going to pull us back in case we go too far and think that by simply thinking whatever, you can change things. It also says, it is not possible to, it's sort of like saying, it is trying to rein us back in case we then get into these fanciful idea that, then I just have to think, something and then it will happen. Yeah? It also shows, no, it also doesn't happen like that. Right? So this is a caution against, like, what do you call it? Like these prosperity gospel, these days, and all these inspirational, speakers, will say things like, you envision wealth, and you will get wealth, Actually, 6.4 says, no. It's also not as simple as that. So 6.4 is really important, to balance things out. Yeah? So we'll look at 6.4 on Wednesday. Ta-ta.